It's Father Vogel. We continue our series on St. Francis de Sales' Introduction to the Devout Life. We are in part 3, looking at the different virtues, and this chapter is about society and solitude. So how we are to interact socially with people, as well as the need to spend some time alone. So he begins by saying that to seek the company of others and to shun it are two blameworthy extremes. Now, by saying that, he's not saying that we should never be with others, or we should never seek to be alone, because, those are the only two options. But rather, he's talking about the extremes that we might take in doing that. To seek the company of others when we ought to spend time alone, especially if we're seeking others to avoid certain things we should be doing. Or, he says, to shun the company of others for various reasons when we should be around others, especially if our state in life requires us to do that. So, he says we should not disdain or have contempt for a neighbor, nor should we seek out to be always with people and so be idle in the work that we should do. He says, if there is no urgent need for you to seek company, remain within yourself and reflect within your own heart. If some good reason demands your presence in society, go there and meet your neighbor with a joyful heart. So this kind of balance for both of those within our life, because our different kind of temperaments can maybe lend us towards one or the other. So someone who loves being alone may need to push themselves a bit more to be with others, or those that can't stand being alone, they are probably going to have to work on spending that time so they especially can pray. So he looks at first this being with others in society. So there's various forms of that can occur. The first thing that he looks at is bad company. So this is specifically, being around or engaging with people for a bad purpose, perhaps a sinful or evil thing. And this, of course, is always going to be bad. This is not the kind of society or friends that we want to have. We already spoken in previous chapters about friendship that is not good, and so this is falls in the same area. He says it is not possible to frequent these vicious and dissolute persons without risk and danger, above all for those whose devotion is still tender and weak. So, we can think of it in terms of especially, maybe kids or teenagers who can have peer pressure from those that are bad influences. We want to make sure that those that are easily drawn away avoid friends or company of those that are going to be bad for them. The next kind of social interactions he talks about are purely recreational social gatherings. And so he says that certainly we can give these kinds of gatherings some time, especially the time that we have for relaxation. Though he also says that we don't want to become addicted to them, so that we're always seeking out all these kinds of social gatherings and we don't actually get our proper work or take care of the things that are required of us. Another kind of social gathering, he says, he calls the purposeful social gathering. So he says this has a specific good or purpose to it, a reason why you're gathering with others. So he says it might be mutual visits or certain meetings for honoring a neighbor. And he says that we must fulfill a duty when we have this, to be with others. And he says do so with modesty, to avoid both equally rudeness and thoughtlessness. So when we maybe somebody has invited us or we're putting on something, we don't want to be rude and take more people's time than they have, nor do we want to be thoughtless and not give time for others at all, whatever kind of specific purpose we have. So we have the purposeful social gatherings, and then he says we have the truly spiritually useful social gatherings. And so these are going to be specifically a kind of gathering of individuals who want to grow in the devout life, want to become virtuous, and they're gathering so as to help each other. He says a person who finds himself often in the company of virtuous people cannot but share their qualities. So we assist one another when we gather together and support one another to be able to grow in that way. So there's different kinds of groups, maybe Bible study or small groups that can get together, and you're specifically trying to help each other grow in virtue. These would fall under those kind of useful social gatherings. Whatever kind of gathering it may be, he says, in all of them we want to act with simplicity, gentleness, and modesty, not trying to draw the attention, in a sense, to ourselves and make ourselves, the center of it all. But he says, generally a moderate joy should dominate our dealings with others. So don't, even if, there's struggles going on, there's a time and place, of course, to bring that to others and ask for their prayers or input, but we don't want to come across in those kind of gatherings bringing all of that to them, but a kind of moderate joy of being able to be with people. Then he's going to go into talking about solitude. So we spend some time with others, but we also need to spend time alone as well. And so he looks specifically at solitude of place, because he's already spoken in a couple different places about the kind of mental solitude that we can enter into wherever we may be. Even if we're around others, we can, at different moments throughout our day, kind of turn interiorly and recall that we're in God's presence and speak with Him, bring up the kind of love for Him. But he says we also want to appreciate the real solitude of place. So when we're actually physically alone from others. He says, so to find that kind of place, whether it be your room, the garden, whatever place it may be, to be able to rest in alone for a while. It says, withdraw your spirit into your heart and refresh your mind by good reflections and holy thoughts, or by a short reading, whether of the scripture or of the saints. So when we are in solitude, then that gives an opportunity for God Himself to speak to us. When we're surrounded by many people, oftentimes the voices around us can distract from hearing Him. So it's very good to go off by ourselves and have that time alone. It's very important too that we don't take that from another. So like, for example, maybe spouses, one spouse might want to be with the other one, but you don't want to take away, if they haven't had a chance because of work or something, to have any time alone. You don't want to take that away from them. For strengthening and refreshing so that of their spirit after the rush of so many affairs. It's really necessary for all of us to have that time. Jesus, and that's why He Himself had the apostles come off to a place away from everything to rest and pray. So we want to follow the example of Jesus as well as the saints in going to a place of solitude, but at the same time also making sure we spend that time that is good with others as well. God bless.